start small so your mistakes are small, if that makes sense. If you go in really heavy without much experience and you make a mistake, then it can be catastrophic. Whereas we decided that because every business is going to make mistakes. So the mistakes we made early, we weren't so heavily invested that it was a real big problem. We could fix it, learn from it, and then put it right in the next pub or the next venture.
I'm joined today by Stuart Broad, fast bowler turned entrepreneur. He's here to tell us about his transition from elite sportsman to founder of the Cat Wickets pub company. He started the business with his former teammate, Harry Gurney, and we'll learn how his partnership with his former teammate made the startup a success, also about the setbacks they've overcome and which lessons from the cricket pitch have helped him in business. Thank you for joining me, Stuart.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So tell me a bit about when it was in your illustrious cricket career when you started thinking, what am I going to do next?
Good question. I think as soon as you approach 30-ish as a sports person, you begin to think, well, it's quite clear you're nearer the end than you are the beginning, unless it's something like a golf where you can maybe play till you're 55, 60. The physical sports are generally your mid-30s is when, if you're lucky enough, you can get to stop. So when you start approaching 30, you're very conscious that you need to start focusing on something that you might have an interest in going forward. Mine probably started at 24, 25. We're very lucky in cricket. We have an organisation called the PCA, Professional Cricketers Association, that help you find courses or potential interests that you could take forward, job placements to learn a bit about. But the pub company came about just by sort of fate, really, just chatting with a friend in a pub. And he was a GM of a pub and wanted sort of skin in the game, so to speak. And that's where the Cat Wickets pub company sort of got founded, really. Because I was, 2017, 7 years, I was sort of 30, interested in the business world, but hadn't been part of like a startup, and the opportunity arose to start one. So that interested me a lot. I mean, it's been a hell of a journey. We've changed and evolved so much in the 7 years, but also we've learned a huge amount as well. It's an ever moving industry, the hospitality industry. We always say we're cautiously optimistic. It's never like we're high as a kite and we're never down there. We're always cautiously optimistic, but it's a wonderful industry to be in because you're surrounded by people.
Did you always know that you wanted to go into business with Harry? And did you have conversations when you were teammates about it, or did it just happen again by chance?
A bit by chance. So Harry's a trained accountant, and he talked quite openly about, he was a cricketer for Leicestershire, Nottinghamshire and England, but he always said his heroes growing up were business people. So not necessarily the traditional loves cricketers, wants to become a cricketer. So he's always had a big interest in business, and that was, and we had a business partner called Dan Cramp, who was the GM of a pub, and was very successful in running that pub, but as a GM was just on a salary rather than having sort of shareholding. So we sort of said we can make something happen as a trio. Dan sets the pub up and runs all the pubby stuff. Harry's an accountant and gets the finances, gets the business side of things, and I can play a role in sort of building PR, being the bank, so to speak, an investor of sorts, and having that devil's advocate mindset of challenging people of what direction we were going in and stuff. So that's where we started. And it went from almost being, I wouldn't say a hobby, but it was a bit like, it would be great to be able to take the family there on a Sunday lunch, to a couple of years down the line going, well, if we're going to do it, let's do it properly. Let's really restructure the business. Let's try and have a route that we can go down to grow. And now we're in a place where we're able to get third very soon, maybe 5 in the next couple of years, and keep growing from there and scale up.
Because you'd already created the business and you were still playing cricket. Were there times when it interfered with your ability to be a professional sportsman? Was there any kind of overlaps or distractions from the business?
Not really. I mean, Harry's always been incredible on that front, and Dan at the start was very influential in taking that sort of thing off. Yes, of course, after a game there'd be times where I'd be on the phone quite a lot, sort of discussing different supplying routes and different styles of how we wanted the pub to be. And we've always had that culture that we're there to serve the village, we're there to serve the local community. So very much we listen to everything that comes our way. So ultimately in our pubs we don't have TVs because we wanted it to be a place where the family go for a meal. And the moment we were discussing it, and I'd taken my mum, sister, grandma out for a Sunday lunch, and I think Man United were on the telly in our first pub. Man United were on and we had TVs. And I got my grandma there, my mum, my sister, and I'm not a Man United fan. I was watching Man United and I thought, what am I doing? I could watch that anytime, enjoy being with the family. So we sort of created that culture that we have Monopoly and Scrabble, and we want people to come and enjoy a Sunday roast and then play a board game instead of phones and TVs. So that was one of our sort of values that came about from making a mistake, so to speak, early on, that I was engulfed in the football instead of enjoying my family time. And actually we found a great benefit to that from the customers, because the atmosphere of the pub's always great. You don't have the cheering of a goal necessarily, but you've got that talking and that enjoyment and enjoyment of each other's company. And we get a lot of families coming just to spend time together and enjoy the time together, which is what pubs are for, really.
I mean, that is the heart of what pubs always were. At somewhere the community could spend time together and be social. There would be a church and there'd be a pub, and that's where you'd congregate.
And we set our, one of our mindsets very much is, yes, of course, we want your family to come and enjoy a meal for six, but we also want an individual to come on their own who might not have family close and grab a pint and sit at the bar on their own, but be able to talk to anyone. So all our staff are the culture of our staff are very warm, engaging, and we don't want it ever to be, I don't want to go to the pub on my own and have a pint. It's like, come. That's what we're here for. Ultimately, we're your friends in the village, for you to come and have some interaction if you've had a quiet day, or if you're feeling a bit down, or if you've got some news to share. So that's the forefront of the mind of the culture of the pub. And if all the staff know that, and all your employees know that and buy into that, then it becomes a very warm place to go. Because if anyone walks through the door, it's an engagement straight away. How are you? How are you doing? We're a bit busy at the moment. I'll be with you in 1 sec. All that sort of stuff is a cultural thing for the staff to be aware of. And Harry, who is the GM, runs it daily now, is very strong on that. He's we try and work with good people is the polite way of saying it. He's got another route of saying it I won't swear on the podcast, but he ultimately only work with good people in your staff, whether that's chefs, GM, front of house, waiters, whether it's suppliers. If they're good people, then they buy into the culture of it, and we see it very much like a sporting changing room. Everyone speaks to everyone with great respect. There's no hierarchy within the staff. There's no right for the chef to shout at someone who they class as maybe below them in the pecking order. That doesn't work. It's all about being on a level playing field and having good people around. And we feel like that builds the culture. Almost when you put on an England cricket shirt, you're so proud to wear the 3 lions. We want people to wear the Cat Wickets logo and be proud to work there. And that's the culture that we've tried to drive forward.
And it's so clear that the ethos behind this business and the mission is it really resonates with people. But you've still had a really tough time in many ways. I mean, not even touching on COVID, which must have been very tricky. You had a fire. Tell us about that, and tell us how you felt when you found out that your business was literally going up in flames.
Yeah, remember it very clearly. About 5:20 in the morning, I was playing a test match in Nottingham, fortunately, so I was sort of on site, but it was day 4, and Harry Gurney had a call at 5:20, which in the pub trade is very unusual. You might get a call at 11 p.m, but never at 5 in the morning. So I was like, hello, pub's on fire. What? What? And then he said, check your WhatsApp picture. So I looked on my WhatsApp picture, and he'd taken a picture from the top of the hill as close as he could get to it. Whole roof's up. So it took 8 fire engines to put it out. Completely abolished everything, really. The whole place was derelict inside. But it was weird because by the end of that day one of all the emotions, I spoke to Harry, and he's like, we're going to bring it back better. It was that was his focus straight away. It was not. I was a bit more emotional than that. I was like, oh no, it's all gone. It's all gone. We'll never get it back to what it was. But he was like, we'll get it back better. We'll be able to we won't be able to change the print of it, but we'll be able to design it so it's more user friendly. All the little things that make it feel like a warmer pub, align the kitchen better so it works smoother. And that was the mindset. It took a year to get right, but yeah, 8 fire engines.
You were insured though, right?
We were insured. Like all insurance, always a bit of a scrap, isn't it? But yeah, we got it to exactly where we wanted it to be, and ultimately, sort of take the positives mindset a little bit. In that year, everyone, when I bump into people, I'm so sorry to hear your pub because it'd been on the news. But then when we open, we had immediate PR. Because people were like, oh, that was the pub that burnt down. Should we go and have a look at what it's like? And because we've been so strong on making it better, everyone seemed to really love the new fit out and the new style of it. And we did some soft openings to start so we could make sure everything was working fine. And that's been our mindset throughout the business, really. Start small so your mistakes are small, if that makes sense. If you go in really heavy without much experience and you make a mistake, then it can be catastrophic. Whereas we decided that we'd because every business is going to make mistakes. So the mistakes we made early, we weren't so heavily invested that it was a real big problem. We could fix it, learn from it, and then put it right in the next pub or the next venture, or by the next week. So that's what we did with opening the tap and run after it had burnt down. Opened it to our friends, family. Opened it to the village. Come and give us feedback. What do you think? Do you like this? Do you like that? Okay, we'll put that right. We get it. Oh, it's too hot. Okay, we'll make sure, all that sort of information, and then bang, we'll open to everyone. So that's come back as strong as we could ever have wished for, but not by chance. It was because it got redesigned. It got made more user friendly, better for the customers, great beer garden, etc. And all the staff were buzzing to get it back open.
Your point there about not taking a risk or not going down an avenue that's going to be too expensive to double back on or to fix. Like, I've spoken to business people and it's taken them years to learn that. And you seem to have it straight off the bat. You're literally driving a path forward that other people, it takes a long, long time and the kind of hard MBA of life to figure out to avoid those mistakes. How did you do that? Did you have great advice, or are you just a natural businessman?
The good thing about having business partners is you're a constant bounce. You're always sort of discussing things and very open. The key to sport changing rooms and to business is just you can't hide anything. You can't just try and cover a little mistake or something. Just be like as honest as you possibly can. So our first pub that we got was, I think, we could do 50 covers on a Sunday, which is very small, and now we're up at like 250. But it meant that if you made a mistake, you'd hear about it straight away because you've only got 50 people in the pub or whatever. But then when COVID came, it made it completely impossible for that to reopen, because with 2 meters apart, if you could only get 50 people eating at one time, if they then all have to be 2 meters apart,
get 5 people in there.
We had to have more staff than people in there, so that became impossible for us to reopen without making a huge loss straight away. So I can't remember an exact moment where we decided that we were going to start small, but we just, because we didn't know much about the industry, we wanted to dip our toe in it rather than go, we're going to buy the biggest pub in the world and we're going to make it the best pub in the world. That was never the mindset. The mindset is to have the best culture of a pub business in 10 years' time. And in sport, you might have a great debut, but you don't become a Lionel Messi in the first year, do you? So it's very much sort of building up to learn so much about the industry that when you do go and get your star pub, it's perfect. And now the Tap and Run it's a beautiful pub. We can get to 20 to 30 covers in on a Sunday roast. But now our goal is that will be our smallest ever now. So when we grow, it will always be bigger than the last, because our experience is more, our staff are better, that we're better informed, we've got comfortable with our suppliers. We know the area, we know the industry. We try and get our pubs all within 10, 15 mile radius, so we can use the same staff, use the same suppliers, because it's going back to that good people thing, people we trust, that then we can grow quicker if you know that you can rely on the people around you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you've mentioned a few setbacks during the course of our conversation and how you've come back from them. And I'd love to know where you found that resilience and how you've built that up through your sporting career, the ability to sort of dust yourself off and pick yourself up. And can you tell me how you've built that in yourself?
Yeah, I mean, cricket particularly is full of, sounds a bit negative to say, but I mean it in a positive way, it's full of failure, really. Not every day can you look at yourself in the mirror at the end of the day and go, I've had a great day. Probably looking back at my international career, probably only 10% of the days do you actually go back to your room and go, yeah, I've succeeded today. What a great day. So if you're building your whole mindset on success every day, you're going to be a bit angry at yourself because it won't work like that. So managing expectation is crucial in professional sport, but you're also built on dealing with failure and dealing with it in the right way to put it in a performance, if that makes sense. You're going to lose games. It's natural. You're going to have off days. But how do you make tomorrow better? How do you make the next day better? And I think that's built resilience for me over a long period of time. I made my England debut at I think I was 19, just turned 20. Played till I was 37. So think how many games I lost. Like a lot. How many times I bowled badly. But ultimately, I'm very much someone who I don't dwell on things like for a week. It's a 24-hour rule, and then I take everything I've learned. But I don't watch things back. I take what I felt, and then I move forward in the sporting world. So I'd never necessarily go back and go, I think on this footage, technically, I think that looks not aligned. I'd go, that felt like that was doing that, so I need to put that right. So I built resilience through growing my knowledge of feeling what I was as a player a little bit, and putting it right myself, not being reliant on coaches. I think sometimes sports people get the wrong mindset, that they think the coach is there to coach them and make them the player. It's not true. The player's there to make themselves the player. The coach is there to facilitate and to help and to guide. But if you don't know where you want to be, then how's the coach going to know? Actually, I was just sat on the Sage Small Business 11 call. I don't know if you know much about that, but it's the Small Business 11 that we've put together with 10 other small businesses to have a community to talk and to help grow and ask silly questions that you might feel like you can't ask or employ someone to ask and stuff. And one of the small business owners came on. It's the best bit of advice he'd had, and it's so interesting to just listen to how other people see things, isn't it? So it's so good to just pick brains and listen to other people. But he said the best bit of advice he had was an old friend of his says, "Well, know exactly what you want," and that sounds so basic. But he said it changed his life, because he said, well, if I don't, because he said, I don't know what I want. So, well, where's your start? Like, where are you going then? And if from that moment, he was like, well, I'm going to decide what I want. And then I know I can plot a route to achieve it. And I think that's really important in business and in sport. As a player in sport, I knew what I wanted. I knew that I wanted to represent England, but in a winning way. I didn't just want to get a cap and wear a cap and go, I'm proud. I wanted to win in the cap and create memories in the cap and continuously improve and drive the game forward. In business, if you go into it not knowing where you want to end up or what you want to be, then you can float around and have a slight loss of direction. We started the Cat Wickets pub company a little bit like that, it's a hobby, it's fun, it's great to have a Sunday roast in a good pub. Whereas now we're like, no, we want 10 pubs. in 10 years. And we want to be set up that every pub gets bigger every time we get one. But the culture never and the quality never leaves us. It's always actually the quality gets better in every pub. The worst thing that could happen is we have a great pub, we get a big one, and you go to it and go, oh, it's not quite as good. Well, the business has to be in a place where the quality continues. So we know exactly where we want to be. Then we're not there yet. We've got 2. But we know where we want to be. And that's how I can see how the sport and business links.
How many pubs do you want to have? What would be like the golden number that you're aiming?
I think the aim in the short term is 5 as quickly as we can with retaining quality. But we're not going to make a mistake on a pub. We always research everything about it. So we're not just going to rush in and think, oh, that could be a good pub. We need to sort of know that that's something that we could develop and do really well. And there's a lot of pubs coming up at the moment. It's a tough industry. Like I mentioned to you, cautiously optimistic. It's not an industry that you can go into knowing that you're going to be a success. But there are opportunities to turn brilliant buildings and brilliant pubs that have been amazing to communities into exceptional pubs that people fall in love with again.
It's interesting that you've gone from sport, where you sort of live on a knife edge, to hospitality, where you live on a knife edge. You don't go for an easy life.
No, I should do, really, shouldn't I?
Everything that you've learned while building this business, there must have been some kind of outstanding lessons that you might think would be useful to people who are running cricket clubs, local cricket clubs, because a lot of them are really struggling at the moment. How would you suggest that they make their businesses more resilient and attract more people and just keep becoming more sustainable as a business, as a going concern?
Yeah, I mean, it's ultimately growing up through cricket clubs. Edgerton Park in Melton Mowbray was mine. And one thing that is so evident in cricket clubs is that community feel, is a people's place. It's where, people volunteer to do everything. I used to turn up at Edgerton Park, and to set the game up, just to be able to start, you'd need to put the flags around the boundary, you need to put nets across the river at one side, you need to open the scoreboard, you need to paint the lines on the... So everyone would just muck in, and I think you gain respect for teammates and friends at cricket clubs like that when people just crack on and muck in and do their thing, don't they? And I used to drive to away games in the second team from memory with an accountant who would do all the books of the cricket club, just as a favour, as a voluntary thing. And the communities of cricket clubs are so strong. But again, they're based on great people, aren't they? And respect. And that's where Edgerton Park was so superb. And the same faces have played there for 20 years, still playing there now. When I've been through and finished a whole international career, they're still playing there with the same people, which is a great sign. So, I suppose the advice for cricket clubs is continue to value everybody and realise how much it takes to put on a Saturday afternoon of cricket, but realise people love doing it as well. So feed off that, and feed off the energy of the good people that are around, because people want to feel valued. If you're scoring or opening the score box or doing the tees or pulling the pints, if you get satisfaction out of doing that, and you feel valued and loved around there, and you've got a social life from doing it, and you make friends from doing it, then that community will continue. If people are rude to you or don't make you feel welcome or criticise your work, then you're not going to keep doing it, are you? So it's all that sort of same thing that motivates a sports team, a changing room, or a business to drive people forward is be as good a person as you could possibly be, really, and feed positive energy into the place.
And on that point of kind of being the positive leader and driving the culture, do you feel like leading a business is similar to leading a cricket team, or are there quite fundamental differences there?
I think it's very similar. I mean, Harry Gurney, who is MD of the Cat Wickets pub, he sees it as virtually exactly the same, actually. He mentioned to you, often talks about representing the badge of the Cat Wickets pub club, which is a very sporting term. But if you can feel pride in putting the outfit on, then you'll feel pride in your work, and you'll want people to have a great time, and you'll want people to praise your work. If you've hosted a table and they've had the best night ever because it's the parents' 50th, you want them to remember that day, and you can be a big part of making them have a special day, and that's definitely the culture. Almost seeing yourself in the entertainment industry, in cricket, you are in the entertainment industry. People are giving up their weekends to come and watch you at Lord's or the Oval or something. And it's the same in the pub industry. People are giving up their time to come and experience what you've got to show them. So make it the best show you possibly can. Give them everything they want. If anyone watches this, that could get to the next level, you know what I mean? But, if they want something different with their food, when we do everything we can to accommodate that, or they want something different for a birthday, or they let us know it's their birthday, a bottle of champagne on the table, all that sort of thing is part of what we're there for. And our staff buy into that incredibly. They know that the customer comes first, and we as business owners know that our employees are the most important thing, because if our employees are happy, then the customers will be happy.
And you were such an entertainer in cricket. I mean, you are so famous for flipping the bails or edging the ball and refusing to walk. I mean, the amount of noise and response online to some of your antics, and a lot of it was hilarious. Do you feel like you're able to express yourself in the same way now, and still be cheeky in your own way? Or is that kind of consigned to your cricket career?
Good question. Yeah, I mean, we've actually filmed a few little idents for the pub where, I'm washing the floors or pulling the pints, and Harry's sort of stunned I'm there, or I'd be saying, "Come on, Harry, all hands on deck, go and wash the dishes," or something. So very tongue in cheek and a bit of fun, because I remember I pulled the first pint in our first ever pub. And I said, that's the last time I'm going to do that. That's for the professionals. It's I'm very happy drinking them the other side. That's I did sort of, as I played, I did often get energy off the crowd and look for the sort of mischievous thing in the game that could create a bit of a story outside the cricket, if that makes sense. So there's always that mindset. Like on the board of the pubs, I play the devil's advocate. I'm always the sort of, why? What are we doing that for? What's the reason? Can you explain that? And that's my role, but never in an awkward way or a difficult way. But it's just I like playing that sort of role of questioning. I need a reason for that. I'm quite stats driven. I'm quite I like the analytics of everything. But with that, I need to know a why. I need to know what's the reason we're spending that money on that. Is that going to really help us, type thing. But yeah, I although I took my cricket extremely seriously, I wouldn't say I take myself overly seriously, so I'm not offended by anything. I don't get offended, so it's I'm very much open for a bit of cheeky conversation on the odd occasion with the business.
I'm not going to try and test that thesis, not for the fun. How can I offend Stuart Broad? I'm not doing it. I wanted to ask a little bit about adaptability, because you seemed very good in your career at taking the best at what coaches were offering, at what people were saying to you, from analysing your own game and shifting focus and adapting to new situations. Do you feel you've been able to do that in business in the same way, and be very reactive? Or do you feel like you've had to, move a bit more slowly in that way? As you said earlier, small steps rather than big full-scale pivots.
I think small steps, but we're very curious. We're always looking at ways to improve the business. I think if you get comfortable in your environment, you get slow. So we're never a business that's going to rest on our laurels and be like, oh, things are great now. Because if you slow down, then the pub down the road is going to be trying something different and can hop ahead of you. We're definitely stepping in a bit more into, obviously, how important social media is. What's the right times for us to post certain things? There's no point posting a gin and tonic at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday. You need to...
I don't know, there might be a market for that.
But, we're definitely on the mindset that you want someone in the village to click on your Instagram and go, wow, I fancy that now. Like, can I get down to the pub and have that now? So can you encourage, 2 for 1 at some stage, or make something look so attractive at the right time that, people are finishing work or fancy socialising. So, I'd say we're definitely, without a cricket pun, push the boundaries internally for us, but without being too extravagant outwardly, because it's the pub trade, and ultimately Your customers do like familiarity. They like consistency. They want consistent quality. So if you try too many things at once, you can lose that rhythm to the flow of the pub. And it actually, you go to a pub because you know what you're going to get a lot of the time, don't you? You know you want good quality. You know you want a nice Sunday roast, a couple of beers, a bottle of red or whatever, great dessert, a nice view, all that sort of thing. If you try and overcomplicate it too much, you could lose sight of what you do really, really well. But within the board, we're constantly going, what's our next thing? What's our next thing? What's our next thing? Because that's an important mindset to have.
On mindset, how do you look after your mental health? How do you maintain a positive mindset? There's been a lot of sad news in the cricket world this week. Like, how do you look after, I suppose, yourself, your mental strength?
I write notes, which is I don't like that sort of saying journaling, because it does sound a little bit sort of wishy-washy, but I always have throughout my cricketing career and continued since moving away from that. I just jot down things on my mind first thing in the morning, if it's 5 minutes with a coffee or something, and it's generally of the rhythm of what's important for me today, what am I grateful for, what's on my mind, because what I do that for is gives me a drive for that day. So in cricket, I might have written engage the crowd today, so I know that's my target. So actually, if I do engage the crowd, my goal's achieved. Doesn't matter if I get no wickets. What's important, it's a lot of the time it's about making other people feel uplifted, or in the cricketing culture under Brendan McCullum, what wasn't appreciated is walking into a room, how you feeling, mate? Bit tired. Because then if I say I'm a bit tired, then you suddenly think, I might be a bit tired, and there's a bit of a knock-on effect. So even if I was feeling really tired, I'd write in my notes, so I'd be aware that you're feeling tired, because I'm always really honest in them. Be aware that you're tired, but actually when you get in the room, praise something straight away, so it's a positive thing. So you walk in and, how you feeling? Yeah, that's the best coffee on the circuit, that, isn't it? How good's the coffee at breakfast? It's unbelievable. And then bang, you're into the day. So that doesn't mean that you're not tired, but it means that you flip your mindset into believing that you're accepting you're tired, but actually can you give off a positive energy? So I still try and do that as much as I can. Actually, I notice if I haven't done my notes for a couple of days, or just been here, there and everywhere, I can find sort of my mind does keep thinking of like a variety of different things, whereas actually if I write it down, it's sort of out my brain onto paper, and then I can refer to it or see it. But I write how I want my mind to operate in that day, basically, which means that I've got something to reflect on a little bit and review against a bit. There might be times when I've been a bit too busy on my phone when Annabella's at home, and that makes me feel sad when I do that. So I then write it down and say, just be aware, like, you don't need to be on your phone. Your daughter's the most important thing. You don't need to be anywhere near your phone. And then the next time I think, I'll just check that, then it will click in. Actually, I don't need to check it. Nothing's more important than what's in this room right now. Does that make sense?
It does. That's fantastic advice. That's really beautiful advice. And I think that's something that everyone can do. Just focus on small achievable wins for that day, and don't try and do everything.
Yeah.
But whatever.
I still, every 4 years in my career, I wrote like a brainstorm with a big goal, whether it's the next Ashes is my Olympics or whatever, and I'd circle it, and then I'd over time write little things that I would think would be important for me to get that, need to be getting really working in October, fitness is everything, or blah blah blah. But I'd check that once every quarter, every 3-4 months. It wouldn't be a daily thing. Whereas my notes, it would try and be daily, and I could flick through them, and just, even if it was one line that was annoying me, bang, and then it's not annoying me, it's annoying the paper. That was my theory.
I love that. Thank you so much, Stuart, for your time. I've loved having you on the show. Some fantastic advice there for people doing career shifts or starting businesses or growing businesses. So thank you for making the time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Wow, that was Stuart Broad. What a treat to have him on the show. Thank you all for listening. I hope you found his insights and advice as fascinating as I did. If you like this episode, let us know on the socials, tagging Sage and using the hashtag SoundAdvicePodcast. See you soon for more Sound Advice.